I was a 13-year, three-time Pro Bowl NFL player. I didn't know who I was. I thought I was God's gift to this world. I was very self-centered, very proudful. I had a lot of ego. That was the core of my disease. And as a result of that, I got into smoking crack cocaine, lost my freedom several times. I've been shot on several occasions.
As a first-round draft pick of the St. Louis Football Cardinals in 1982, Luis Sharp went from trading shots with fellow greats like Lawrence Taylor to literally fighting for his life in prison 25 years later. Sharp's been sober for nearly a decade.
And we talk about in the program how we get a daily reprieve. You said one day at a time. We get a daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition. So I have to do things intently to feed my spirit man on a daily basis in order that I don't return to active addiction. But absolutely, when the pandemic happened, the country closed down, the meetings were shut down, we knew that there were going to be many people who wouldn't make it and would fall off.
No, things are getting worse.
Dr. Julie Croft is Executive Director of Clinical and Population Research at Oklahoma State's National Center for Wellness and Recovery in Tulsa.
One of the first indicators of what was going on in 2020 was just looking at the tax revenue changes, right? So if you look at Oklahoma's tax revenue reporting, they group alcohol, medical marijuana, all in the same revenue category, and you saw 15% increases in 2020, month after month. We're still up.
She says those sales tax revenues last month were up 22%.
The statistics that are just blowing me away are that the overdoses are higher than they have ever been.
Nationally, overdose deaths are up a staggering 30% since the pandemic began.
Largely, the overdoses are being driven by methamphetamine and opioids. Yeah, and fentanyl's huge right now. It's coming into the country more than before. So we're seeing more deaths related to fentanyl being in the drug supply in general.
What about alcohol?
Yeah, so I mean, alcohol is accessible.
Dr. Kelly Dunn is Executive Director of Clinical Treatment at the National Center for Wellness and Recovery. She says through Zoom, they're partnering with local clinics in towns all across the Sooner State. She says the opening of the 49,000 square foot Hardesty Center will help provide addiction solutions for generations.
If you're struggling with trying to stop a habit that's just not helping you anymore, not serving you, pandemic's over, you're ready to return to normal life, but you know you've picked up something that just is causing you a lot of trouble now, there's treatment available. There's medication that's FDA approved to treat opioid use disorder and alcohol use disorder, and quite a lot of other things we can do to help people who are struggling with addiction.
U.S. Congressman Markwayne Mullin co-sponsored federal legislation 8 years ago that puts alleged drug offenders on 24-hour or longer hold instead of jail. He says it's been a successful deterrent, but the pandemic has exacted a terrible cost.
We saw a tremendous spike. I mean, we saw a spike, an increase of over 90,000 accidental opioid deaths around the United States just during the pandemic period. And then that trickles down effect to a lot of health issues, including liver and kidney disease too.
And we're not even talking about alcohol.
Yes, yeah, not even talking about alcohol there.
Chuck Robinson is a licensed alcohol and drug counselor who is sponsoring a golf tournament August 23rd at Rose Creek in Edmond. The goal is to raise money for people who normally couldn't afford treatment.
I think we as humans are intended to be in fellowship with one another, and when we were separated and isolated, it brought out the worst in us, and so many passed the time with substances, and if they had the propensity to be addicted, it skyrocketed. Isolation brought about a lot of those problems.
Since the pandemic began, Integris Hospital Systems reports severe alcohol-related admissions are up 38%. Arcadia Trails Center for Addiction Recovery in Edmond Medical Director Jed Perdue says CDC statistics show 3 out of 10 people still report significant depression or anxiety. Before the pandemic, that number was just 1 in 10.
You know, I think that the answer, to start with, people who find that they're having difficulty stopping a substance or difficulty controlling the use of a substance, the first thing that they should do is to talk with someone else.
He says it's never too late to ask for help.
One of the ways in which substances hijacks our brain is by by impairing our decision-making ability. And so by talking with the support, by talking with someone you trust, it adds a layer of accountability that then makes it easier to get that help that you need.
Luis Sharp now spends his days on behalf of the NFL encouraging young people to make good decisions.
Today, because my negative sense of self has been replaced by a positive concern for others, and I'm a much more productive member of society. I'm at peace. I'm on vacation. Let me show you. Me and my girl, we're in South Carolina. Say hello to Tamika. We're on vacation here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And none of this would be possible, Steve, if I was still using drugs.
Steve Shaw, the Oklahoma News Report.